She did what she was supposed to do. She graduated. She broke up with somebody who wasn't good for her. She chose herself. And 2 days later, she was dead. This is what happens when a woman says no and a man decides that's not an answer he's willing to accept. 20, that's the number you need to hold on to right now. 20 shell casings. Not one, not two, not things got heated and a shot went off. 20 on a residential street in broad daylight. And the young woman on the ground in the middle of all that brass, she had walked across a graduation stage 48 hours earlier. Before we get into this one, like, subscribe, and drop a comment for this case, cuss girls. This one will keep you mouth open. Let that sit for a second. I'm going to tell you her name, and I need you to remember it, because by the end of this video, you're not going to think of her as a victim. You're going to think of her as a girl who did everything right and still didn't make it home. Her name was Ra'Mya Silvan. She was 18 years old, and this is her story. If this is your first time here, welcome to Trial of Clues. We tell the stories the news cycle moves past too fast. Domestic violence, toxic relationships, and the people we lose when a partner refuses to let go. No sugarcoating, just the truth, laid out so you can see it clearly. If that's what you're here for, subscribe, and let's get into it. Ramya wasn't the kind of person who blended into a room. She was a working makeup artist, still a teenager, already building a name for herself, doing hair and glam for people around New Orleans. Scroll through what she left behind online and you'll see it. The confidence, the artistry, the joy she put into every look she created. She wasn't just posting for attention. She was building something, a future, a brand, a career she was clearly serious about. She was a student at Warren Easton Charter High School, and in May of 2026, she hit the milestone every teenager works years for. She graduated. The school put out a statement afterward, and one line from it tells you everything you need to know about the impression she left. They called her a bright, talented young woman with a promising future ahead of her, and said her loss was deeply felt throughout the school community. That's not something a school says about just anybody. That's said about somebody who mattered to the people around her. Before graduation, there was prom. May 17th, she posted about it, the dress, the glam, the whole moment, and the comments filled up the way they do when somebody's genuinely loved. People celebrating her. Not because they had to, because they wanted to. 5 days later, May 22nd, she graduated. 2 milestones, 1 week apart, both of them documented, both of them proof that this was a girl standing at the start of something good. Now let's talk about Daniel Romero. He was 20 years old, and at one point, he and Ramya were in a relationship. Girl, this is the part I need you to lock in on, because it's the hinge the whole story swings on. Ramya's own family later told police the relationship had been tumultuous. That's not a throwaway word. Tumultuous doesn't mean we argued sometimes the way every young couple argues sometimes. It means there was a pattern. It means the people who loved Ramya had already noticed something wasn't right long before any of this happened. By May, it was over. Ramya ended it. She was 18. She was standing on the edge of her adult life. And she made the decision that so many of us tell young women to make when something feels off. She walked away. I said what I said. That should have been the end of it. She made her choice. It was hers to make. It was not the end of it for Daniel Romero. Here's where I need you to pay close attention, because nothing about what happens next is random. After the breakup, Daniel Romero reached back out to Ramya. His reason: he wanted to bring her iPad back. An iPad, that's it. That's the whole excuse. Make it make sense. Because when you actually lay out what happened next, this was not a man doing a favor for his ex. This was not a wellness check. This was not somebody trying to patch things up over a peaceful conversation. A grown man does not show up carrying a loaded gun with 20 rounds in it because he's worried about getting a tablet back to its owner. But Ramya didn't know that. She had no reason to think that answering the door for a simple exchange was about to become the last hour of her life. So what happened, happened. On May 24th, 2026, 2 days after her graduation, 7 days after prom, Daniel Romero came to find her on Hollygrove Street in New Orleans. Here's a detail that matters more than it sounds like it should. His car was spotted parked 2 blocks away, sitting there for 5 full minutes before the first shot was ever fired. Sit with that. You don't park 2 blocks from somebody's house by accident when you're just dropping off an iPad. You don't sit there for 5 minutes deciding whether to walk up. That's not spontaneous. That's a decision being made in real time, and prosecutors would later point to that exact detail in court because it speaks to something more than a man losing his temper in the moment. Ramya and Daniel got into an argument. We don't know every word exchanged between them, and honestly, the words don't matter as much as what came after them. What came after them was gunfire. Not a single shot. Not 2. Romero kept pulling the trigger until 20 bullet casings were left on the ground. 20? Let me tell you something. That number is not a person who panicked and fired once out of fear. That's not a moment where somebody snapped. That is a person who made the decision to keep going over and over, round after round, on a residential street in broad daylight, with apparently zero regard for who else might have been out there. A neighbor, a kid walking by, anybody. Ra'Mya Silvan was pronounced dead at the scene. She had multiple gunshot wounds. She never made it to a hospital. She never had the chance. And the iPad, the whole reason Romero said he even came over that day, was found right there at the scene, just sitting there, untouched. The errand that was never really an errand. By the time police arrived, Romero was gone. His car, last seen 2 blocks away, minutes before the shooting, was nowhere to be found. Anyways, here's what happened next, and it tells you everything about the state of mind we're dealing with. Romero did not walk into a police station out of guilt or conscience. According to prosecutors, it was his own family who pushed him to turn himself in. His family had to convince him to do the right thing. And even then, before he did, he got rid of the gun. Investigators say he tried to hide the murder weapon. Oh, so now the same man who claims he only came over to return an iPad is disposing of evidence? Let that land for a second. When police got to Hollygrove Street, the scene laid it all out for them. 20 bullet casings. Ramya's body. That iPad, left behind like an afterthought. And 2 blocks away, the empty spot where Romero's car had been sitting just minutes before everything fell apart. Investigators didn't need long to start connecting the pieces. The car placement mattered. The casing count mattered. The iPad sitting untouched at the scene mattered. Each one of those details is a thread. And when you pull them together, you don't get a picture of a spontaneous argument that spiraled out of control. You get a picture of somebody who came prepared. The gun became the centerpiece of it all. Romero, according to investigators, tried to get rid of it after the shooting. And that single decision, trying to dispose of the murder weapon, is exactly what prosecutors would later use to speak to his state of mind. Because here's the thing, you don't hide a gun because you panicked. You hide a gun because you know exactly what you did. By Monday, May 25th, the day after Ramya was killed, Daniel Romero was in custody. 20 years old, now facing a second-degree murder charge. Yes, he turned himself in. But per prosecutors, that only happened after his family pushed him into it. So the story of a man walking in on his own conscience, that's the narrative his defense wanted to build. prosecutors moved to take that narrative apart from the jump. What investigators had going into court was substantial. The physical evidence at the scene, the car placement, accounts from the neighborhood, and Ramya's own family, who had already told police exactly what kind of relationship this had been. Tumultuous, recently ended, and that Romero's stated reason for showing up that day didn't match anything the evidence actually supported. Tuesday, May 26, 2026. Daniel Romero stood in court in an orange jumpsuit, handcuffed, head down for most of the hearing. Judge Juana Lombard presided. Prosecutors didn't hold back. They laid it all out. The 20 casings, the iPad recovered exactly where Ramya fell, the car parked 2 blocks out 5 minutes before the shooting, and the attempt to hide the weapon afterward. They argued the sheer number of rounds fired proved this wasn't just dangerous to Ramya. It was dangerous to everyone on that street that day, and they pushed hard against granting bond. The public defender's office argued Romero wasn't a flight risk, pointing to the fact that he turned himself in. It is what it is. That was their job to argue. But prosecutors countered that the only reason he turned himself in at all was pressure from his own family, not conscience. Judge Lombard sided with the prosecution. Romero was held without bond. The judge specifically noted he posed a potential risk to witnesses, which, given how many people in that neighborhood saw or heard what happened, was not a small thing to weigh. By multiple accounts, his face stayed flat through the whole hearing. No reaction when the charges were read. None when bond was denied. If convicted of second-degree murder, Daniel Romero faces a mandatory life sentence, no possibility of parole. No negotiating that down. No reduction. Life, because that's what Ramya lost, and there's no version of a sentence that gives that back to her. Ramya Silvan graduated high school on May 22, 2026. She was 18, with an entire life already mapped out. The makeup artistry, the hair, the career she was building one post, one client, one look at a time. 2 days later, she was gone. No courtroom outcome changes that. No sentence handed down gives her family their daughter back, gives her friends their girl back, or gives Ramya the future she'd already started building for herself. Her school called her bright, talented, deeply missed, and if you ever scrolled through her page, the prom photos, the glam, the joy in every post, you already know those words weren't just words. They were true. She had something. And it was taken from her over a breakup, over her decision to choose herself and walk away from something that wasn't working for her anymore. That's the question this story leaves behind, and it's one worth sitting with. How does a young woman exercising her right to leave a relationship end up dead 2 days after one of the best moments of her life? The warning signs are almost always there before it gets to this point. A relationship doesn't turn into a crime scene overnight. It builds, it escalates, and the people closest to it, the friends, the family, the ones who already know something's off, sometimes see it coming long before anybody else does. If you see it, say something. If you're in it, reach out to somebody. Ramya deserved to see what her life could become. Nobody should have to lose theirs to prove they were right to leave. Rest in peace, Ramya Silvan. If this story moved you, that's exactly why this channel exists, to make sure the people behind these headlines are never just a name. Subscribe if you're new. Share this if it mattered to you, because the more people who know her story, the more it counts. Drop your thoughts below. We'll see you in the next one.